Hello there, it's me, Josh. Welcome to Story Time. Thank you so much for being here. Super excited to read another story today, as always, because we all love reading stories, yeah? Yeah, awesome. Today we're going to be reading Little Miss Magic. And I'm sorry if my voice maybe sounds a little bit weird or I'm a little bit nasally, like my sinuses have problems. I'm a little bit sick. I've got a little bit of a cold, so my throat and sinuses are in a bit of trouble. But I'm still going to be here reading these stories because you can always read storybooks even when you're sick. Let's go. Little Miss Magic by Roger Hargreaves. Early one Monday morning in summer, Little Miss Magic awoke in the bedroom of Abracadabra Cottage, which was where she lived. She yawned a yawn and got out of bed. She went to the bathroom to clean her teeth. Squeeze, she said to the tube of toothpaste. And guess what? The tube of toothpaste jumped up and squeezed itself onto Little Miss Magic's toothbrush. Honestly, Little Miss Magic isn't called Little Miss Magic for nothing. When she tells something to do something, it does it. Check that out. Just a floating toothpaste. It's like, wouldn't that be cool? Brushing your teeth would be a lot easier. She went downstairs to the kitchen. Boil, she said to the kettle. And it did. Toast, she said to the toaster. Spread, she said to the knife. And the knife jumped up and spread some butter on the toast. Pour, she said to the coffee pot. And sat down to breakfast. Don't you wish you could make things do things like that? That would be really cool. Check it out. Look at her at the breakfast table there. All magical. Anybody out there like Harry Potter? Yep. I love Harry Potter. That magic world is fun. Let's keep going. Let's find out what Little Miss Magic can do and what else she gets up to. Going on adventures would be fun if you could be magical, right? Yeah. She was enjoying a second cup of coffee when there was a knock at the kitchen door. Open, she said to the door. And as it did, there stood Mr. Happy, looking exactly the opposite. You don't look your usual self, remarked Little Miss Magic. What's the matter? Everything, replied Mr. Happy. Come in and tell me about it, she said. Have a cup of coffee. Pour, she said to the coffee pot. There's Mr. Happy in the doorway there. Not super stoked. Not very Mr. Happy, hey? No. Now, said Little Miss Magic, what is it? It's Mr. Tickle, replied Mr. Happy. He's become absolutely impossible. What do you mean? Asked Little Miss Magic. Well, went on Mr. Happy, he used to go around tickling people every now and then, but now he's going around tickling people all the time. He sighed. I'm chatting away there. Like, oh, Mr. Tickle this, Mr. Tickle that. Little Miss Magic looked at him. It can't be that bad, she said. It's worse, said Mr. Happy unhappily. Cheer up, she grinned. Come on, she said, and off they set from Abracadabra Cottage. After you, said Little Miss Magic to Mr. Happy. Close, she said to the door. There they go, embarking on their little adventure. Mr. Happy, still not so happy, a little bit of a frown. Mr. Tickle was in full cry. What a Monday morning he was having. He tickled Mr. Mean until he'd moaned, and Mr. Greedy until he'd groaned, and Little Miss Sunshine until she'd shivered, and Mr. Quiet until he'd quivered, and Little Miss Plump until she'd pleaded, and Little Miss Shy until she'd sobbed, not to mention the postman, a policeman, the doctor, 3 dogs, 2 cats, and a worm. Mr. Tickle's on a rampage. Ha ha! Cried Mr. Tickle as he spied Little Miss Magic and Mr. Happy. Anyone for tickles? And he rushed up to them, reaching out those extraordinarily long arms of his, with those particularly ticklish fingers on the ends of them. Little Miss Magic looked at Mr. Happy. I see what you mean, she said, and winked. I wonder what she's going to do. Mr. Tickle's taken the tickling far too far. Hey. She pointed at Mr. Tickle's extraordinarily long right arm. Shrink, she said. And then she pointed at Mr. Tickle's extraordinarily long left arm. Shrink, she said again. And as you remember, when Little Miss Magic tells something to do something, it does it. Uh-oh. So Mr. Tickle's extraordinarily long arms might not be as extraordinarily long anymore after Little Miss Magic shrinks them. Mr. Tickle's arms were suddenly not extraordinarily long. They were extraordinarily ordinary. "That's not fair," he cried. "You've spoiled my fun." "It might have been fun for you," remarked Mr. Happy, "but it wasn't much fun for anybody else." "Come and see me tomorrow," said Little Miss Magic to Mr. Tickle. Mr. Tickle's arms is like, "Wah!" "There," she said to Mr. Happy. "Happy now?" Mr. Happy smiled, that famous smile of his. "I'll say," he said. "Come on," he added, "I'll buy you lunch." And off they went to his favourite restaurant, Smiler's. Is Mr. Tickle there? He's not so happy anymore. And the worm's laughing, because he even tickled the worm. On Tuesday, Mr. Tickle went round to Abracadabra Cottage. He knocked at the front door. "Open," said a voice inside. "Oh, hello," smiled Little Miss Magic as the door opened by itself and she saw who was standing there. "Come in." Who do you think that is lifting their hat there at the front door? Mr. Tickle indeed. "I expect you'd like me to make your arms long again," she said. "Oh, yes, please," said Mr. Tickle. "Very well," she said. Mr. Tickle's face lit up. "On one condition," she added. His face fell. "You're only allowed 1 tickle a day." "1 tickle a day?" said Mr. Tickle. "That's not much." "Promise," said Little Miss Magic. Mr. Tickle sighed. "Promise," he said. "Grow," said Little Miss Magic, and both Mr. Tickle's arms grew back to their original long length. "Now don't forget," she reminded him, 1 tickle a day. Or else," she added. Mr. Tickle went out through the door. "Goodbye," she said to him. "Shut," she said to the door. And then the door would have shut. Mr. Tickle, 1 tickle a day? Come on. Mr. Tickle stood outside Little Miss Magic's cottage. "Oh well," he thought, 1 tickle a day is better than no tickles a day. Good point. It was then that he saw one of the downstairs windows of Abracadabra Cottage was open. 1 tickle a day, he thought, and a small smile came to his face. 1 tickle a day, he thought. Do you think... Look at his arms all tangled there. Do you think he might be using those arms for his 1 tickle to tickle Little Miss Magic? Maybe, let's find out. And on that Tuesday morning, as one of those extraordinarily long arms reached in through the open window of Abracadabra Cottage, the small smile on the face of Mr. Tickle turned into a giant grin. 1 tickle a day, he thought. So I think that means, if you'll agree with me, hear me out on this one, guys. He's going to tickle Little Miss Magic for his 1 tickle a day, every single day. Do you think he was really because he was thinking about that? Yeah? That would be funny. Then Little Miss Magic has got that 1 tickle a day forever. She made the rule. Well, that was a fun story. It'd be awesome to have magical powers and tell your door to open and close and your lights to off and on. That would be pretty awesome. Well, we can kind of do that. Technology does that now. We can be magical through tech. Anyway, I'm talking too much now. I'm going to go. I'll be back again with another story really, really soon. Please subscribe, click that bell below, and then you can visit the page, read stories whenever. So I'll see you really, really soon. Bye for now, but not forever. Alright, I'm Josh, and this is Story Time. Thanks for being here.